about what made you, you know, give you the ability, what I'll call, to cut the umbilical cord. Because I find sometimes when people go to the part-time, you know, they have a full-time job and then they're doing part-time, and they have sort of both incomes, and trying to cut that standard, or that, you know, sure income, to go to something that's sort of not necessarily the same every week or every other week or whatever the story is. So what gave you that to cut the cord?
Well, at the time, I wanted to go out on my own, but I couldn't really afford to do it. I couldn't afford to just quit.
Right.
But I could afford to get laid off.
Ah, so you made a deal? Let's make a deal?
Yeah, well, in the '71, they were having cutbacks and everything because it was a recession.
Right.
And so it was a good time, and I just kind of let it be known that I would be willing to go. And I did, because, you know, then they paid, you know, your salary for a while and benefits for like 6 months and all that. And then my wife, who was, at the time, who was a registered nurse, had a full-time job. So this was a good time to start a business.
Oh, okay. So you had some security with your wife's income,
right.
And then you had some severance for about 6 months or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you figured, why not dabble or try it or whatever?
That was the time.
So that was a good time.
That was a good time to do it.
And then you never looked back.
No, never looked back.
So I just wanted to ask that question, because a lot of times, you know, what I find when I come up with the folks, you know, some of my clients and some of the counseling that I do, I find that people do this part-time and they go, oh, you know, you have a couple of clients and you know, it's no big deal, they never leave me or whatever, and then when they cut the cord, it's a whole new world. It's like reality sets in. It's that, you know, that paycheck that used to be so consistent now is not so consistent, and it can be a big shock to people. So I just wanted to see how, you know, you made that decision to cut the cord. So that was interesting. So you took advantage of an opportunity, it sounds like.
Right.
So it's sort of like, you know, opportunity knocked and you opened the door kind of thing. And you walked through, right? So that's good. So anyway, so we were talking a little bit about technology and how you've seen in the last 10 years that things have changed. So what I'm always interested in is that, you know, every industry goes through, you know, changes. And although sometimes there's small changes or sometimes there's large, as a business owner and someone that's been in business for some time, you know, how do you keep up with that? Because a lot of businesses don't. In other words, they say, well, we've always been doing it this way, so it's no big deal. But then, you know, they're behind the 8 ball, and they can see that their business starts to deteriorate. You know, so how did you keep up with the technology? How did you learn how to utilize the new technology and that type of thing?
Well, in the very early part of digital, I had a client, Royal Business Machines, you know, and there's 2 different clients I had. One was Yashica Contacts, the camera company, and I used to do all their photography, and they had come out with a digital camera, and I could buy cameras from them at the employee price.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Okay, so that was number 1. And number 2, I had another client, that Royal Business Machines, and they were doing a new catalog of all their supplies, ribbons and things like that, and everything they made. And so the art director there, who I'd known very well, he said, look, this is going digital now, and so I'll give you this job if you get a digital camera to shoot this catalog. And so I went to Yashica, I bought a camera from them, didn't know a thing about digital, didn't know a thing about it. And so I got like a little crash course from Yashica.
So they were willing to give you a little...
Just how to operate the camera,
you
know, but that was about it. But as far as...
Did you ask where the dark room was afterwards or something?
As far as like the whole technology of how to download into a computer and then how to work with the images from there to get them to a CD, etc., like that, I didn't know a thing about it. Now, luckily, Tom, the art director from Royal, was very good on computers as far as like all of this sort of thing, because when he would get in digital media from other sources, you know, like from a lot of the stuff was made in overseas, and they send a digital file. He had to know how to do this stuff. So the 2 of us, and he wanted to learn about digital photography, because he's also a very good photographer, and we work together on photography projects now. And so he wanted to learn it also. So basically, the 2 of us learned, you know, him from the digital side as far as how to get the stuff downloaded, and me from the photography side. and we both learned a lot about it while doing this catalog, and it worked out great.
Wow.
You know, and
so someone
that
was willing to help you along, right?
Yeah, and it was really seat of the pants. Like,
yeah.
this was like within a couple of weeks when he said that, I'll give you this job if you get a digital
yeah,
camera.
It's sort of like, okay, I have my options here.
And then in the first couple of years, we still shot a lot of stuff, both film and digital, film backup, because digital was very unreliable in the beginning, where the cards would get corrupted, there was lots of problems. Color matching was an absolute crapshoot.
Yeah.
You know, trying to
in some ways it still is, you know.
Yeah. But it's come a long, long way. And then a part of it was our inexperience with working with it, and part of it was the technology at the time. And then it advanced. I still thought that digital would be like an adjunct to film for quite a while.
Oh, okay.
But that quite a while was like a 2-year
2
period
years.
before.
And then it was like everything went
everything
digital.
was totally digital.
Right.
And of course I love it. I have a love-hate relationship with digital. I love the technology and working with it.
Right.
But the bad part is that you have to constantly be upgrading like equipment. Like for instance, in the film world, you could buy a camera and let's say spend $2,000 for a camera. 20 years later, you could be using that same camera.
Right.
But with digital, you spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a camera, and 2 years later, it's basically obsolete. And you've got to. It's not really obsolete, but you really, if you want to stay cutting edge and stay with the competition, you've got to upgrade it. And the same thing with computers and with software. You know, as digital moved along and the files got bigger and bigger and bigger, the hardware had to keep up with that.
Right.
And of course, it gets very expensive. You know, we work all with Mac computers, which are a lot more expensive than PCs.
Than regular PCs, yep.
And you have to constantly be upgrading the computers and the software. And they've really got you because they don't make it backwards compatible. So that
you notice that, yes, right?
Yeah, so you have
I always love when they say, it's compatible with anything, and even for upgrading and whatever else the story is, that's a bunch of you-know-what.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, they really figure like a 6-month life on,
Isn't that
on this
sad?
stuff.
That's scary. That's scary.
You know,
so do you upgrade every 6 months? I mean, that must be pretty expensive.
No, I don't every 6 months because I don't try to stay cutting edge. Like I will go like with every other upgrade of things, like with Photoshop.
Right.
I don't always try to stay with the very latest version. That was a big problem in the early days of digital, where people invested a lot of money in very expensive technology that was obsoleted very quickly and then ended up going out of business.
Right.
I know several photographers that happened to,
Yeah.
where they wanted to be very cutting edge. And some of the early digital technology was almost ridiculous, and it was extremely expensive. You know, like a digital camera back then, a high-end digital camera was $30,000–$40,000.
Wow.
And you can buy cameras today for $1,000,
Right.
far superior.
Absolutely, right. Well, it's sort of like when you're talking about, 1.2 megapixels and whatever our story is, and now you're looking at cameras in phones that are a lot more, right? A lot better than what was.
Well, they're not really
I understand,
exactly compatible
right,
to that, comparable to that.
But, if you compare probably what was there,
yeah.
you still get a little better picture out of your phone camera than you did back when it first, so it's amazing.
It's just like a little handheld calculator that you spend $10 for today is more sophisticated than the one that they had on the LEM, the lunar module that landed on the moon in 1969. That was more sophisticated today for $10 than
it's amazing, right? How
That was another thing too. I was working for RCA at the time.
Right.
And in the
May they rest in peace, right?
Well, they did a lot of the technology that was on that space mission, and the film came back to us that the astronauts shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
The film came back to the lab, to our lab, and so I've got an original print of that picture of the moonscape in the foreground and the Earth setting above it. So the Earth looks like the moon is blue and looks like a jewel. So I have an original photograph of that.